on our YouTube page, and I believe that we're going to have a wonderful time this evening. So with me, I've got Jax, I've got Veronia. I'll be introducing them as we go along, and we just give us another 2 minutes, and then we'll be ready for our YouTube guys to get in touch with us, and then we are live on air. Praise God for all that. We're going to have a wonderful time. Today is basically, we're talking about money and investment, building now for a secure future. So guys, it's going to be great. Halfpenny Potentials, thank you so much for joining. TMA, I can see you on there joining us on our Instagram. Franklin, God bless you, all of you that are joining. And Flaky, yeah, I can see that's all the way from Nigeria, by the way. That is fantastic. Just another second, and I'm sure on our YouTube page, yeah, and I believe that live right now, and I'm sure. I've got Jax, I've got Veronia, I'll be introducing them. Now, can you still hear me on YouTube? Can you hear me? I just want to make sure people can hear me on YouTube as I'm speaking right now. Yeah, I know we're live, but also I just want to make sure that on my YouTube page, everyone can hear me. Hello, Yasmin. Hello, Margaret. Oric, please let me know if they can hear me, because I had to reduce my volume because of what's coming out from YouTube. I might have to switch that off.
Yeah, so mute.
You hear me on YouTube. All right. Good evening, Margaret. Good evening, Yasmin. That's great. If you are on Instagram, let me just do this introduction. You may want to see a better view of us on YouTube or Facebook, and I'm sure that that will work better visually. But if you still want to stay on Instagram, that's fine. But we are on a YouTube channel, Worship UK YouTube channel. But we will be going live both on Instagram and YouTube. So you're welcome to join us. I can see people just dropping off. I think they may just want to go to our YouTube channel, but that's still fine. We're going to do this on both channels, and I believe we're going to have a wonderful time in Jesus' name. Okay, now we are going to start. So let's pray. Father, we thank you for this evening, and we bring everyone together. We ask God that your spirit will rest upon us, and as we discuss the things that are so much pertinent to our heart and things that are relevant for today, I ask in the name of Jesus that you will keep us and preserve us, and you would allow us to speak your word, and that we may be able to shape lives, fulfill dreams, and guarantee success in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Today, I have the honor, guys, to have two young people here. You understand when I mean young, they're in the millennials, but these guys are on the top of their game in what they do. And I brought them on because I guess that many of you may be tired of hearing me shouting about your finances, especially reaching the young ones and everyone all the way up or up to 90. And I feel that this week we want to just deal with how we can reach the young ones. And I just feel it's best to have people in your era to start to be able to talk to you, and we can have a discussion about the things that are going on in our lives and how we can increase our finances and do pretty well. I've got Jax Opoku. He's an investment management professional with over 7 years of experience. He is a serial entrepreneur and a retail investor himself, and is recognized for providing financial education and investment guidance to everyday person. This guy is lit. He is really good. So guys, I'm telling you, we're gonna have a great time this evening. So just start to get yourself sorted and get a cup of tea and some biscuits and get ready to really be wild tonight. And then I've got Veronia Spain. You check her YouTube channel. She is brilliant. And we have the blessed time together, and also a wonderful time and an opportunity to get her on. She's an HR professional by day, but a money coach by night. She was the typical millennial who previously spent everything she made, though she said it wasn't much, and is now on a journey to financial peace and independence. She works with a lot of millennials right now to create a step-by-step money plan to spend less, save more, and invest the difference. So we've got two different people coming from two different places, but they are going to be a great blessing to us tonight. So invite your friends, invite your families, mothers and fathers online. Why don't you bring your children, the young ones, bring them, let them come on to this channel right now. Put it on the TV, on the big screen. Let it start to boom in the house. That no matter how young they are, they will gain from this, you understand? And also parents join in so you can teach those who are coming after you, and also you will gain quite a lot as we go to the future. Probably next week, I may be dealing with how you invest at a certain age. So are we ready to go, guys? You all right? Are we ready to go? Okay. My first question, and that's to Veronia. Please tell me about your story and how your road into money management that has brought such a passion that you have both on your Instagram, your YouTube page, in reaching your generation. Because those videos that I see, they're so funny, but yet they're very, very passionate. So how did you get into this, and why are you speaking to your generation?
Yeah, so I've probably been on this journey just over 2 years. So I would say it's kind of recent, and the reason why it was very strange, because I was working, I was just doing my normal job in human resources, and then I was actually living away from home because of where I was working. And so I was living in a house of multiple occupations, where I was living with other professionals, and so it meant that I had a lot of time after work to really do nothing. And before, I just kind of used to, spend it watching Netflix, for example. And at that point, I could actually tell that God was telling me something. I didn't know what it was, but God was telling me something. And then all of a sudden, I think I just sort of sat down and I went, I don't have any money at the moment. And so it kind of felt as if God was speaking to me, just based on the fact that I started to, go on YouTube, learning about, personal finance just in general, and how people actually invest for their futures. And it was like a whole other world. And how I knew it was actually God speaking to me is because at the same time, this is when you, Pastor, had started talking about finances in church. Right. And so at that point, I went, okay, God is really speaking to me. And so I hope you can hear me as well. Yeah. But at that point, I knew that I had to make some changes, and I had already been in debt at that point as well. So I had a student overdraft of about £2,000 that I'd taken from university. Right. And then I'd also just got a new car, because where I was working, everyone was driving to work. And before, I used to have a 10, 15-year-old car, which wasn't great, and I could see everyone sort of driving all these nice cars with the BMWs, like you mentioned. And so it meant that I had about £14,000 worth of car loans that I had. So inevitably, I had about £16,000 worth of debt. And so when I started looking at my net worth statement, which is usually your assets minus your liabilities. So assets is really things that you actually own. So for example, savings and investments. And then liabilities, sorry, just hoping that you can hear me. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me now? Is that better? Oh, okay. Hopefully that's a little bit better. But yeah, what I was basically talking about is I essentially had about £16,000 worth of debt. And yeah, assets are sort of things that you tend to own, such as, you know, savings and investments, and liabilities are really things that you owe. So for example, if you've got credit card debt, if you've got any car loans or anything like that. And so when I actually put the numbers in, I realized that I was minus £16,000 because I had no savings. And so that really, really just made me realize that actually I wasn't in a great financial situation. And so it meant that I had to just take the opportunity to learn as much, and not only just learn in terms of personal finance, but also developing habits as well. So actually seeing what the Bible says about money as well, for example. And so it meant that during that time, I was determined to get my debt paid off. And I was also learning about things like financial independence as well. And so throughout that journey, I had to do, oh, sorry, Pastor Ty, you're on mute at the moment.
Tell you to put your other headpiece on, you understand, or take it a bit away, because I'm still getting some people who says there's a bit of an echo. So in the headpiece may just want to attach to the phone, you understand, and then.
Is that better?
Pardon? Yeah, however, guys, if you can move on to YouTube, then that will be better, because YouTube is a lot easier to connect while we're doing that. We're just telling people on Instagram so that if anyone joins, we're telling you to go onto our YouTube, or you can also join us on our Facebook. Yeah, come on. Yeah, let's.
Yeah, my headphones. That's better. But yeah, so at that point, I made a plan to actually pay off my debt whilst I was learning about personal finance. I did other small things. So I actually cut myself off social media. The reason why I did that is because I knew that I was going to have to make some sacrifices. And if I looked on social media, on Instagram, seeing people, you know, going out to restaurants and enjoying life, I would obviously have that fear of missing out. And so I really had to cut down. Yeah, I really had to cut down social media, but also how often I was seeing my friends as well. I kind of just had to tell them I could only see them maybe once a month, for example, just so it meant that I could actually attack my debt and put all of my money towards my debt. And actually at the same time, I was then really creating a financial plan for my future as well, so that I knew as soon as I paid off my debt, I was going to get things like an emergency fund sorted, and then I was going to start investing. And so I'm now at the point where once I had done that, it kind of felt like God was then telling me, okay, now you need to share with people what you've already done. And so essentially that's why I started my YouTube channel, because I knew that a lot of people probably would be in a similar situation to me. And it really, in terms of sort of personal finance influencers, a lot of them are from the US. And so it can be quite difficult to understand what you need to be doing, especially if you're in the UK. And so I thought, well, that's an opportunity for me to help other people who maybe just look like me. And yeah, that's kind of where I am now. And now I help other people sort of create that money plan and, you know, be able to start saving, paying off their debt, and then also start investing when they actually, you know, have actually paid off their debt, for example.
Oh, excellent. I'm going to reserve some of my comments, because getting off our social media is one of my biggest drive. When somebody wants to be, I call it, you need to be sometimes reclusive to be exclusive. Sometimes if you want to reach a certain level, sometimes you've got to take a step back from some certain things, you understand, so that you can reach that level, and then you're matured enough to come back and handle it. And that was a great thing. Jax, you man, speak to me. How did you get into this financial investment? Why a financial educator? Why are you reaching your generation? Tell me.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, my journey back dates to probably when I finished my master's degree in 2013. And essentially, you know, I just wanted to start a career in finance. I had always enjoyed finance and that kind of stuff. And to cut a very long story short, I managed to start a career in investment management. And luckily for me, I would say I was favored in the sense that I was doing a 9-to-5, a job, a career that allowed me to kind of propel myself in my personal finance journey. But if I'm really honest, the why is what was the most important. Now, I grew up in a low income household. I always tell people, I remember back in school when people were wearing kickers, I was wearing £10 shoes and I was breaking them every single day because I played football in them. I also remember getting £2 a day, if that. I think it was £1.50, £2 on a good day. And I remember going to the chicken and chip shop while people were getting burger and chips. I was having the one-piece meal. And I was so jealous. So I grew up, you know, I'm from a household where, you know, we've had to manage debt and that kind of stuff. So I grew up with the mindset that I would never grow up in a position where I'm financially handicapped or financially struggling and that kind of stuff. But as I said, I've probably around 2013, 14, I decided to go on what I call a personal finance journey. And essentially what that was I just woke up one day and I said, Jax, when I was a child, I spoke like a child. I understood as a child.
Come on.
When I became a man, Jax, you got to put away some childish things.
Wow.
And that wasn't just my personal finance journey. That was my relationship with God. That was my dealing with my health and a few other aspects of life that I deemed to be very important. But the finance one was very important for me because my why was very, very big. And so I started doing things like reading. I read a lot, something I struggled with very early on because I didn't grow up reading.
Right.
My mom didn't read books to me for me to go to bed. I only ever read to pass exams.
Right.
So doing things like reading books and then obviously changing friendship circles and just being very proactive and intentional with my decisions allowed me to go from a place where I was in obviously a lot of student loan debt, but I also took out debt for my master's degree.
Right.
And going from a position of that, paying off all the debt, going to a position of financial stability, where I had my emergency fund and that kind of stuff. We'll talk about this later on probably. And then going to a place where I had enough, you know, cash to pay for any near-term purchases. And then obviously to today, where I've gone past that stage and I've got a very strong portfolio, investment portfolio, which obviously the journey continues on and on and on. So that's me in a nutshell. But also what happened was people that knew the industry I worked in started asking questions. Jax, you know, what is a mutual fund? Jax, how do you invest? This was back in 2015. And it is something that we're not taught a lot, especially from my demographic anyway. And so I found myself speaking consistently to people about mutual funds, investment funds, how to get started, how to use the right accounts, how to invest, how much, all the questions that people are probably going to ask today. I was being asked 5-6 years ago. And so it was my passion to start delivering some of my knowledge and transferring all that transferable skills I picked for my job and my own personal finance journey to the everyday person, because I think the everyday person, very unfortunately, is not exposed to some of the things that I was exposed to by working in the investment management industry. So yeah,
that's great. Let me ask a question, and guys, if you have any questions, I know we're building up, so just be patient with us. We're building up, but if you have any questions, you can send it via YouTube or you can send it through our Facebook page or stuff like that. We will pick it up and we will ask the panel these questions. But you said something, and please forgive me, I'm not trying to be that ethical, but you said that we were not taught these things, people that come from that kind of demography that you spoke about. Why were we not taught those things? Why did you find those issues along the line?
Well, I'll answer this from the investment perspective. You can't speak about something that you don't know very well. Money generally, for the majority of people, is an uncomfortable conversation.
Right.
It causes you to be quite vulnerable,
right,
exposed. And if you only have to look at the statistics, sorry,
that's right.
we're just vibrating. You only have to look at the statistics to know how many people are struggling financially, to know why it's not a common conversation. No one really wants to talk about something that causes them to feel exposed. But I think for me, the penny really dropped when I started working for a company called Schroders. I don't mind drop naming. It's a lovely company. I enjoyed my time there. And me and a kid, we started working on the same day. I was 25 and he was 22. And just speaking to him and his background and the things that he was exposed to from a very young age just opened my eyes to the fact that this guy's lifestyle was totally different from mine. He was having conversations about finance, building wealth, careers, all throughout his lifetime at a dinner table.
Wow, wow, come on.
Dinner table.
About that. At a dinner table.
At the dinner table. So consistent every week. With his parents, yes. And I just thought, I don't remember those conversations with my parents. And so that was the struggle. And that was when the penny really dropped, and I said, hey, I need to have more of this conversation. I need to be speaking to people more about this. And yeah, it's people don't talk about it because it's an uncomfortable conversation. That's the truth. You know, when you're speaking about something you really enjoy,
right,
really understand, you're ready to talk about it,
yeah,
right? But when you have to talk about something that you probably don't have, which is going to force you to feel a bit exposed and uncomfortable and vulnerable, it's an uncomfortable conversation. You don't really want to have it.
Okay. I'm going to repeat myself again, just for those who are on Instagram. They want us to go more over to YouTube. So for those who are on our Instagram page, if you would love to go to our YouTube, the sound is better, it looks better, and then it cuts out the echo. We're trying our best to deal with that, but then it cuts it out. So I'm giving them a few more minutes for those who are just joining us in Instagram to move over, and then we'll probably might shut the Instagram page down and just focus solely on having this conversation on YouTube, just YouTube. So I'll give it another 5 minutes. And please, guys, make sure you send your questions through if you have questions. You said something that really touched me, and that's really important in us growing up, not having anyone sit around the table to teach us about financial management. Most of us had to learn this by ourselves, in which we've made many mistakes along the line. And so this is the kind of thing that we're trying to pass over to the next generation, that the next generation may be able to know that if you get it right now, your children will go a step beyond you. And that's what is called transference of wealth, because wealth is not only transferred in the form of money, but wealth is transferred in the form of knowledge. Are you following what I'm saying? And this is really, really, really important. I'm sure, Werner, probably you may have had the same experience of not having somebody sit around the table to actually tell you what these things are going. But my question also to you, as you want to answer that, is why are the millennials, you understand, so laid back about money? I know Jack said it's an uncomfortable thing to talk about, but you've got to give me an idea and probably put it out. Why are we frivolous with our money and not frugal in your generation? In my generation, having said I'm not that too old, we were not taught, period. We struggled through it. But I feel that there's a lot of information out right now. There's a lot of things that are there to help people, but we seem not to be connecting. My two question is why, and two, what can we do about it?
I think a bit.
Verona?
Yeah, Verona, yeah.
Oh. Yes, I was going to say, I think a big part of it is this sort of instant gratification lifestyle that we tend to live. And I think we're very used to this kind of buy now, do it now, it has to happen now. And so I think because of that, it doesn't particularly help when you have things like if you're going to buy clothes, for example. You've got all these buy now, pay later schemes that are happening where you can say, actually, oh, I don't need to pay anything, and I can maybe pay a couple of pounds a month just to finance my clothes. And so it means that you get all the clothes that you want now, and you can think about paying for it later. And so I think because of that intensification, it's just made us feel, I guess, kind of feel like we're just fueled into this sort of spending culture. And I think particularly with millennials, we really value experiences. And so even though we may not be as materialistic, for example, or value a lot of materials, we value experiences, and experiences aren't cheap. So rather than before, where we have just been coming off where you may have just been going to France, for example, you might be going to, Mauritius or Bora Bora instead. And so I think because we've now sort of seen that lifestyle, which probably hasn't really helped with things like social media as well, that can also have an impact. We're now sort of used to just kind of wanting to have that more experience rather than waiting for it later in life.
Right. Okay, guys, now I'm going to say this. We are going to go off so that the panel can just focus on the YouTube. We're going off Instagram because it's better on YouTube. So I'm going to shut down the Instagram page right now, and then we're just on YouTube. Is that all right? Guys, please move over to our Instagram page, and I'm sure that we would have a wonderful time there. Okay, here we go. Now, guys, are you all right now? We're just on Instagram right now, just on YouTube.
Very good.
Yeah, okay, so my next question, let me still stay with you, Veronia. Let me stay with you. Tell us, you understand, we probably will have some questions. Tell us, how exactly can we start to save money? What are the first steps to setting a financial foundation for yourself?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is I think a lot of people just kind of say, oh, just teach me how to save money and then that's it. When a lot of the reasons that's not the case until you know where you are actually starting. So I'm talking about, are you recording your net worth? Do you know how many assets and liabilities that you have? So do you know how much debt you have? And by that, that's where it's a lot easier for you to understand, okay, where do you want to go? Where do you want to get to? And how are you going to get there? And so whenever I say, you know, in terms of how you can save money, you need to know your why, and you need to know exactly what you're saving for before you can obviously have these other saving tips. So one major thing that's really helped me is, you know, being able to actually pay yourself first. And when I say that, I mean pay God first and pay yourself first before you think about spending. And that's a big thing for me. So whenever I actually get paid, those are the two main things, followed by any essential bills that I have to pay for. Those are going to be taken as priority, and then my spending is actually the least prioritized thing that I have. And with that, you have to be able to actually control your finances, and it is something that people don't like doing, but it's actually budgeting. I tend to say,
talk to me. I
also tend to say, you know, if you don't like the word budget, then create a spending plan. But a budget is a budget, and it's really telling your money what you want it to do rather than letting your money just run rampant and do whatever it likes. And so by that, when you've actually figured out, okay, where you're standing, and then from that, actually being able to control your finances through a budget, then you'll be able to figure out realistically how much you can save, but also what you're going to be saving for. Because what I find with a lot of people is that they start saving money, but they don't know what they're saving their money for. And then something comes up, like your friend tells you that, you know, they want to go on holiday and ask you, do you have money? And you have savings there, and you say, of course I have money there, and you take that because you don't know what else you're saving for. So I think that's probably the first few things that you could potentially do. So there are some tips hopefully that can help.
Right. I got a very funny stuff on our YouTube that says, I think also many of the generations now are earning more than their parents. And that is really true. And therefore enjoying more because of being deprived younger. Now, I don't know what that last thing, but it's really true. I said this to someone, and let me just throw that in before I go to Jax. I said this to someone because someone went to Nigeria and started going to work and all that kind of stuff and enjoying life. And I said that the money, you're living in your parents' house, and they're living in a fantastic, massive house and all that kind of stuff. And the parents gave them a car, and so the car plus a driver, you understand, takes them to work and back and all that kind of stuff. And so they've never, ever in their entire life been on a tube, been on a bus and all that kind. And I said that there's a false idea or false financial, what would I say? A false financial thought process that you have money because of your parents. You have to ask yourself, if they take what my parents have away now, can I afford the way I'm living? Can I actually pay rent? Can I pay council tax? Can I pay this guy? That is actually how much you're really worth. But it rightly said, because there is excess cash that many of the young ones have, they fail to understand that it is a blessing It's a blessing to have parents who can actually help you start on the ladder. But I feel that because of the excess cash, we are not investing, we are not budgeting, we feel that this will continue to go on. So when we grow up and we now have to start to pay for things by ourselves, there's a kind of epiphany, like, where on earth am I? And this is the thing that I'm trying to bring across to people, because if you were in £16,000 debt, it's a budget that will reduce it, not just something in your head or on your phone. You've really got to sit down and sort this out. Jax, I'm going to be oscillating between your what would I say, your expertise. This is a question I want to ask you, because I seem to be a lone voice in the wilderness. Tell me, what's the difference between investing and, you know what I'm about to say? I look at all this cryptocurrency and this, you know, people playing around with money and all that kind of stuff. And I don't understand this quick money scheme and all that kind of stuff, because if you don't have a budget, you can't invest. But many people have more money and they feel they're investing. Tell me what is going on out there and what we need to be careful about.
Oh, but gosh, I mean, I could talk about this for another 5 hours if I had the time. I mean, I think the issue that we're facing right now, that I see a lot is, well, I'll start off with what investing actually is. When you're investing, you are kind of placing down capital into an asset that you believe will provide you with a return. So you take a small amount of risk, and for that level of risk, you expect a return. Now, before anyone starts investing, the truth of the matter is there needs to be a thought process. You know, you need to think about your objective for investing, right? Someone who's about to retire has a totally different objective to someone who is just starting off their journey. So you need to think about your objectives. You need to think about your ability and willingness to take risk. You need to talk about your time horizon. Now, this is the key thing here. The time horizon is where a lot of people don't really pay attention to, right? You just said quick money, basically. They don't understand that investing takes time. Now, in the professional world, every client that comes on board needs to understand that their investment time horizon is usually a standard or a minimum of 5 years, or an absolute minimum of, let's say, 3 years. But the standard is 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years into perpetuity. That's usually the time horizon for an investment to take place, right? And I like to use, for example, property as the easiest asset class for people to understand, because it is the easiest for people to understand rather than stocks and shares. When you buy a property, unless you are doing it as a flip, so you're buying, fixing up and selling it, that's not an investment. That's almost like a business. Right. If you're investing in property, you don't buy a property today with the thought process of selling it tomorrow.
Okay.
You know, you don't try to do that because the chances are you can't control how quickly the property prices will go up.
Right.
But when it comes to assets, different types of assets, what normally happens is people, unfortunately, especially in our demographic, they come into this game with desperation.
You mean flats?
well, you know, they come into this with desperation. They come into this with no real thought process. And the power of hindsight causes them to make some decisions that don't make sense. So what I mean is, for example, an asset, you know, we talk about cryptocurrencies, and I'm not saying they're bad investments. There's different types of assets out there. But the power of hindsight says, hey, this asset here has gone up 20, 50, 100%, 200%, 1,000% in 2 days. So it must be a great investment. Well, if something happens so quickly, there's a reason for it. Right. And then you get a lot of people that, you know, they might have put their money into one of these assets and it's gone up quickly. Now they think they are investment gurus. And they start talking to their friends and everyone, hey, put your money into this, put your money into this. And you can make so much money. And of course, when you come from a low income background, when you're wallowing in debt and you hear about these things, you say, hey, I can put my money into this thing, get a very quick return and even pay off my debt and become financially free and that kind of stuff. But the truth of the matter is, and I said this in one of my interviews not long ago, someone asked me, hey, I want to double my money in 2 weeks. And I said to them, well, go to the casino, because that's exactly what you're doing. Wow. If you're buying assets that you think can double in a week, the chances are you're speculating or gambling. When you put your money as capital into something expecting a return, you're doing one of three things. You're either investing, speculating, or gambling. The truth of the matter is, if you don't have that 5-year time horizon, if you don't understand the asset, if you can't explain to me, I normally tell people that I mentor and coach to do a few things. If you are buying something, if you can't explain it to a 7-year-old why you are buying that thing, which means you have to really understand it to be able to explain to a 7-year-old for that 7-year-old to understand what you're saying. If you can't do that, number one, and number two, you can't write a full-page investment thesis explaining why you are putting your money into this asset and considering everything, your due diligence, what can go wrong and that kind of stuff, the chances are you're not investing, you're gambling, and you're hoping for a return. And that's what's happening right now. And I've seen it happening so many times. There's always the hot thing that's going on. Last year, it was penny stocks and high risk stocks that were going up aggressively for various reasons, various economic reasons. And recent times is more to do with the cryptocurrencies and these coins and that kind of stuff. But the truth of the matter is you need to understand what you are putting your money into. You need to understand the risks associated with these assets and obviously understand how it marries up to your objectives, your time horizons, your ability to take risk and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so I like both of you. You're very nice to people. I'm just straight. So many people, and I've been burnt before. You understand? Many people think that they are investing, instead they are gambling. I remember one of my brother-in-law once saw me when in the 2007 when I was trading, and that's why I want you to talk to me most about, because I was trading and I gained some money, but then I lost more than I put in. My brother-in-law told me one day when he saw me, I thought I was gaining wisdom, so I would look at the FTSE market and the Dow Jones, and then I'll be sitting there on a Wednesday just before the service trying to see what news will come out from America, because if America coughs or somebody coughs, then the whole thing starts coming out. And is there really a difference? And let me even finish the story. Many of my friends or many other people around us got caught up in that kind of stock issue, where it fell. I remember one day when the Dow Jones fell over 800 points. If you've got £10 per point for each one of them, you have just burnt over 8,000, 10,000, 20,000. You can open different positions. Yeah. And many people's houses were taken. Many people lost their livelihood and all that kind of stuff. Now we're into the cryptocurrency and the kind of stuff in there. Recently, was it last week that I heard that Elon Musk withdrew out of it, and then the whole thing started to fall down. What's the difference between investing, trading, which may be called our gambling? I know you said people from low income, we want to make this money fast. Yeah. Nobody wants to wait. According as Veronia also said, that people don't want to budget. You're in debt, but you want to get out now, so you're finding quick ways to make money to clear it, but you're not learning the lessons. You as an investor, you've seen the downfalls, you've seen the downfalls. How can you help me to help them, telling them what the difference is and to be patient to invest?
So let me start off by saying, as a standalone, there's nothing wrong with trading versus investing as a standalone. But we'll explain why, generally speaking, it works out that trading burns people. Right. So investing, as I said, you take your capital, you do your due diligence on an asset, whether it's property, real estate, stock, shares, whatever. You do your due diligence. If it's stocks and shares, you analyze the business, understand the business. Who is the CEO of the business, the management team? Do you check the financial statements? Do they have a strong balance sheet, which means do they have a lot of debt? Do they have a lot of cash? Those kind of things. That's real investing. So you analyze the company, just like if you've watched The Dragon's Den, the questions that they ask. Those are the similar questions you should be asking before you part ways with your money to own an asset. The key word here is ownership. So when you buy and when you invest, you buy shares and you own the asset, right? And if the company does well, you tend to do well with the company over a long period of time. That's what investing is. The time horizon is usually standard of 5 years plus, minimum 3 years. So that's what investing is. Trading is much more of a phenomenon picked up by investment banks that have departments that use a lot of tools and algorithms and certain things to be able to take advantage of pricing. Now, the way the stock market works is, and why it's where a lot of people lose money, is because unlike property, it is a very liquid market with real-time pricing, which means the prices are consistently changing every second. As long as the markets are open Monday to Friday, depending on where you are, it's always changing. Before this call, my assets were one price. After this call, there'll be another price, right? For that reason, those who are not educated enough or have not understood behavioral finance and how it affects them, they will try and take advantage of these price changes, right? So they'll try to buy it and then sell it when it's gone up, which unfortunately is probably the wrong way of doing things. Right. What I would say about a lot of these trading strategies as well, the ones that have gone very, very wrong, very, very left, is because they don't own the asset and they use something called derivatives. A derivative is basically where you use something that has value, but the value is based on the underlying asset, but you don't own the asset. So essentially what you're doing is you're betting, keyword, betting. So I should give you a clue about where we're going here. You are betting on price movements of the underlying asset without actually owning it. And a lot of these things use what we call leverage, right? So, you know, they only have to put in a small amount of money to open a position, which obviously is more than how much money they've put in. So then when they lose more than the money that they've actually put in, which is what causes a lot of turmoil and destruction in people's lives. And that's the issue. But just like we're speaking about instant gratification and trying to make things quickly, it's the same mindset that people come. And that's why, you know, I'll say for the average person coming from a low income or working class background, trading is more attractive than investing because you can make money much, much more quicker. Right. With investing, you might have to wait 5 years before your investment case manifests. Whereas if you're trading, you can buy something this morning and this evening make a lot of money. But what people forget, it works the other way as well. You could buy something in the morning and this evening lose a lot of money. But what I said earlier was, as a standalone, they're not bad, but it's the mindset that goes into these things. Most people that are trading are there to try and make a quick buck. Those people that are investing are usually investing for the long term. And when you look at the data, the statistics, what you find is 70% of people who trade lose money.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah. I think it's even more, but I'm going to use 70% and you can find all this data even when you are opening up accounts with different platforms. You're trying to do these derivatives. It actually tells you if you actually read it that hey, well, 75% of the people on this platform are actually losing money. What you don't understand, which is very, very sad for me, is while you're losing money, somebody is gaining. The way derivatives work is a zero-sum game. When someone is making money, you're losing money. For you to bet that prices are going up, somebody has betted that the prices are going down. And I think that's where people really, really struggle. So I try not to bash trading too much, but I want people to know the truth behind it. And the truth is, if you're going into this, the chances are you're going to lose money.
Speak to me. As a lady, on your channel, when you speak to people, what are the two mindsets between the man and the woman in investing or saving? And should we be investing or should we be saving? What's your experience? Because now that Jax has told, and I'm so grateful that you're honest enough to tell us this, because many people have come to me. I've been on this line before where, you know, there's the physical aspect, there's the spiritual aspect. And I remember one Wednesday when I just felt somebody's making some big mistakes in just going for the quick money. And I said it. The blowback wasn't that bad, but there was some blowbacks on it. And it was like, you don't know what you're saying. Really. But true, that 75% is quite a lot. Veronia, what is your experience and what should we be doing with our money?
Yeah, so in terms of the two genders, what I tend to find is that a lot of women prefer the saving route and they have more interest in the budgeting route and they want to be able to save their money. Whereas you find actually with men, they're probably more interested in the investing route and some of them don't really want to hear about saving. But what's important, I think, is you need to build the foundation to be able to save your money. And there are going to be times where you want to save money. For example, if you're saving up for an emergency fund, I'm probably going to want that in cash. I'm probably not going to invest it, because with investing, you're not always guaranteed to make money. And again, it's when you're investing for the long term. So if something happens, like your boiler breaks down and the stock market tanks, well, if you end up having to sell your shares, you've sold at a loss. So there are times where you do want to save money. But I think where the problem lies is when you're saving a bit too much money, especially when you're thinking about your future. And so what's important is for us to know when you want to save money. So for example, if you're saving up for anything short term, so I would again say something less than probably 5 years, then you would probably want to save your money. But anything else in the long term, particularly if you're looking for financial independence or retirement, for example, then you're probably going to want to invest your money. Now, what's interesting is data actually does show that on average, women can be better investors than men. And the reason why is because with women, they are more, I don't want to say more cautious, but if they're going to put their money into something, they want to know what they're investing in. And so they're going to do their research. And so with that, I think women have the opportunity to actually really start investing. And I think maybe, it can seem a bit scary, especially if you look on YouTube, for example, you will see a lot of men that are investing. And so with women, you might be thinking, oh, no one looks like me when, with investing. So why should I start investing? And so I think that's where a fundamental problem is, because I find when women actually do understand how to invest, then they have the confidence and they will start investing. And I think it's important to know that you don't have to know everything when it comes to investing. So for example, you can take a more active route when it comes to investing in the stock market, or you can take a more passive route. So in my case, I tend to take more of a passive route. The majority of my portfolio, I invest in things called index funds and ETFs. And basically that just means that I am tracking a particular index or a market. And so if that market goes up, then my fund essentially goes up, and if it goes down, then it goes down. But it means that I don't have to take the time to maybe look into specific other companies, which I do tend to do. I do have a couple of individual companies, but you don't have to do that. You can really take a passive route. And so once you learn some of those funds that you could potentially invest in, all you need to do is just set and forget it. You set up your direct debit, and then you're literally just investing again for the long term. So it's not 6 months in and you're done. You don't do that. But that's a route that you can also take if you don't want to have to, take into consideration all the analysis and looking at the fundamentals for the company, for example. So there are times when it's better to save money, but then there are also times when it's better to invest that money. And again, I would probably say the one thing people really need to realize is that there's something called inflation, and it's really when the prices of goods and services are going up, you're losing purchasing power when it comes to your money. And so if inflation is currently at 2%, but your bank is only giving you 0.5%, over time you're going to end up losing money. But again, just remembering that with saving, it can be very beneficial, particularly when you're looking at things that are very short term. But anything long term, when you're thinking about retirement, for example, you're probably going to want to invest that. And also remember, if you have pensions, that's also invested. So, it's something that you probably want to think about.
Okay, something just went over my head. Talk to me about somebody who doesn't understand about this event. You spoke about inflation, and if you have 0%, can you expand that a bit to us so that people may understand when exactly? And then I've got 1 or 2 questions that I've seen on our YouTube that I probably would just ask the panel. Yeah.
I always like to use the example of Freddo. So a few years ago, Freddo probably would have been about 15p. But over time, I think it's probably like £1 or something. Sometimes it's quite a little bit, it may take a bit of time to understand, just based on, for example, if the government is printing money and you've kind of got all this cheap debt all around, when people then receive that money, they're more likely to spend it, and they're probably going to spend it on assets, they're going to spend it on other things, and essentially the price of things are going to go up. So you'll find that your milk's probably going to go up, your rent is probably going to go up with inflation as well. And so once that's happening at that point, if you're only saving money, what is going to happen is that the price of goods are going to be going up, but your money in your bank is only going to be going up like this. And so what essentially means is that over time, you lose that purchasing power. And so that's why a lot of people, rather than having their money in this in their savings account, they would rather have it in assets, because they know that assets are probably going to be a hedge against inflation. And most likely some assets are probably going to beat inflation as well. So for them to not lose that purchasing power, more people are going to want to invest their money instead, rather than keep it in a bank account.
Yeah, I just want to, I want to add something to that, because, you know, as Christians, we know about the story of the talents.
Yes.
And many times, you know, we heard the story about the talents, and we relate it to, you know, letting whatever God's put inside of you manifest. Now, whenever I speak to a lot of people, I say, you know, that story is one of the most economical stories you can read. Because you know the merchant was going away for a long time. Keyword, long time. Note that. And he gave some money. Talent was actually money. So it's I think if he was to put in today's money, it's just over $1 million. So he was given money to the 3 different servants. One was 1, one was 2, and one was 5. And we know how the story goes. The one that had 2 doubled it. The one that had 5 doubled it. And the one that had 1 dug it under the ground. And you know, when I read this story initially, when I was really young in Sunday school, I was really surprised with why the merchant was so angry. So, well, you know, you unfaithful servant, you know. And I said, well, he dug in the ground. I mean, it's not like he would have, you know, squandered it like the prodigal son. And why are you so angry? But when you understand inflation, and you understand that, hey, the money that he dug in the ground has lost so much value, especially because he was away for a very long time, it's become worth less. It's almost lost its value. And so it teaches us that actually just putting money and just saving it, or not earning a return, because he also says, hey, you should have at least put it in the bank so I can get some interest. Not earning a return on your money is actually really bad, really, really bad. And so what I tell people is, to bounce off what Verona said, is I tell people, look, first and foremost, make sure you have your emergency fund in place. That's number one. Actually, even before that, get rid of your bad debt. Get rid of that consumer debt. Get rid of that as soon as possible. If it's 5%,
get rid of the debt.
Personally, I would say get rid of the debt first. If you're being charged 5% and above. Now, if you're being charged a low amount, that's fine. Sometimes, like your student loan, that's fine. But if I'm talking about consumer debt, like your credit cards and that kind of stuff, get rid of it, because by getting rid of the 5% debt, you've automatically made a guaranteed 5% return. So get rid of it.
Say that again. I need to get that.
Yeah. I said, if you get rid of your debt that you're paying 5% on, that's a guaranteed 5% return on your money, right? And remember, when you invest, you're not guaranteed anything. So you have to make sure you get rid of the bad debt first. And then I'll go on to say, look, create your emergency fund. Some people don't like the term emergency fund. Call it your contingency fund, call it your cash reserve, whatever. But you need at least that 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses saved in an instant access account that maybe not even be earning any interest. That's fine. That's not its purpose. Its purpose is to serve as your umbrella when it rains, right? Mm-hmm. But once that's done, and I say once you go over, let's say, a year's worth of savings, you don't want to just continue saving for the sake of it. Save for any near-term purchases, like Verona said. But once that's done, your money has to earn a return high and above, not high, but above inflation for even it to preserve its value. So investing for me nowadays is not something we do as a luxury. Since 2008, the financial crisis, and interest rates became really low. In Europe and Japan, I think it went negative. Yes. So you have to pay the bank to keep your money there.
Keep your money.
Right? So for that reason, I say to people, invest in something we just don't do as a luxury. I think everyone should have their money in investments, and you don't have to be active like I am. You know, I love it. I love to research companies, but you can be very passive. You can be totally passive. Even if you don't want to invest in ETFs and mutual funds and index funds, like Verona said, you can outsource it to like a robo-advisor, like an online platform, or even your bank to do it for you. But I just wanted to make that point clear, because even in a story, I think by him putting the money in the ground, in today's economy, it's quite similar to just having all your money in a savings account where you're earning nothing.
Right. So that answers the question, because someone was asking if I'm in debt, and you've just answered, and you can add to it. If I'm in debt, should I invest while I'm in debt, or should I not? But actually, that is true, because if you're not earning anything in savings, because I've sat down with people before that have like £3,000 in their savings account, but they have a credit card of £10,000, and they still feel they're saving. And
Yeah.
you know the APR on that.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I when I talk to people, one person said, "Oh, I've got £15,000 worth of saving, but I've still got my credit card," and it's trying to get them to understand. And so what I tend to do is I tend to show them a credit card calculator in terms of how much they're going to end up paying that credit card. And when they see how much they're paying that credit card over time, because all they're doing is paying minimum payments, that's when they realize, oh, actually, I could get a guaranteed return by paying off the credit card and then using the rest of my money again for an emergency fund. And then after that, I can then start investing. But it's getting people to understand that. So if you can look for a credit card calculator, they'll ask you for, what's the interest rate in terms of the APR, and it will tell you how much you're going to end up paying the credit card over time if you still keep doing the minimum payments. But it's so important for you, especially if it's high interest debt. You want to get that paid off as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Great. So someone said this. It says, if I have savings, what next? How and where do I invest instead of it sitting in the bank? I think one of the biggest problems is people don't know what to do or where to go. But many people, and this is the reason why we're starting this. We're starting this because we want to be able also, like we have the Excel team, to also have like a financial team where people can come if they have questions regarding their finances, how to get out of debt, how to have debt mentors or financial mentors, and also how to purchase your property. We want, by God's grace, as we go along, we want to develop, and that's why I'll be bringing people online, and then we'll announce to people how they can do this, because we want to be able to have what is called a one-stop place where whether you need a financial advisor, whether you need to buy a property, whether you need to have someone who can look at your finances and get you out of debt, or whether you want to now invest properly in the safe environment. The church has nothing to do with it, but at least you have places where you can go. Is it not the biggest fear is people just don't know where to go after changing their mentality? Because I'm trying to punch the young ones not to spend money, because age creeps up pretty fast. And then if, as we go along, we can talk about pensions, but is it not the fear of people just don't know what to do? Somebody put here that, where do I invest instead of it sitting in the bank? I know we've said, do your research and all that kind of stuff. You and I know many people are lazy to even do a budget. How much more do a research? What can they do?
Well, look, as I said, you don't have to be, you could be an active investor. You could be a totally passive investor, or you could be in the middle. That's where I start from. And for most people that don't have the time or the temperament or the interest of learning how to pick stocks, it's not for everybody. Let's be honest. It's not for everybody to stock pick, right? But it's for everybody to invest. So you can be totally passive, like I said earlier. You can totally outsource it to a robo-advisor. So I'm not recommending these, but you've probably heard of, let's say, Nutmeg or Moneybox or these platforms. You can literally go on there and basically start, asking questions, start opening an account, pretend you're about to open an account. All they will do is they'll ask you, hey, what is your objective? Same things I was saying about before that people don't tend to think about when they're stock picking. So what is your objective? What is your time horizon? So how long can you lock up your money for? People say things like, Jax, I heard that I should only invest money I'm willing to lose. And I think that's silly. I don't know about you, but I don't want to lose any money. Change your mindset, not to say I'm only willing to invest how much I'm willing to lose. Say I'm only willing to invest money I'm happy to lock away for a period of time. For at least 5 years, I say. So these providers will say, hey, how long do you want to invest for? 5, 10, 15, 20 years? For example, and then they'll ask you, what is your ability and willingness to take risk? Some of the providers make it very simple for you to answer. They will say, choose between 1 and 10. 10 being the most risky, 1 being the least risky. And then you choose according to, your ability and willingness to take risk. Once you answer those questions, those robo-advisors, the keyword there is robo, they used algorithms to then just create a portfolio for you. And all you've got to do is just send some money in every single month. That's it. You don't have to be a very active investor like you see on YouTube or you see myself do it. You don't have to. And you can be a totally passive investor. You can also ask your bank to do it for you as well. I'm not a huge fan of that personally, but you can. And there's other platforms, like traditional investment platforms, that will also do it for you. Your job is to find the one that you like, and I would say probably to guide people the one that doesn't cost too much to do. So that's the easiest way to get started.
Right. Vern, do you have anything on that? Because there's another question here that says, aside from getting rid of debt, purchasing a home, and saving into a pension, what are the best types of assets to invest in?
Yeah, so there's the main ones you kind of tend to hear are either stocks and shares or property. Those are two of the main ones. You've also got digital assets as well. So these are mainly if you're actually looking to start a business, for example, particularly in an online business, there are things where you can actually start blogging, and that can be considered an asset because people will, it can eventually grow over time, in value over time, and people will actually buy it off you. So it's really going to, again, depend on your goals. It's going to depend on your risk tolerance as well. With stocks and shares, it's probably one of the easiest to get into, in that you don't need a large amount of capital to get started, because with property, particularly if you're going into buy to let, for example, you're probably going to need to have a lot more money to get started. So that's why most people, you know, if you don't have too much money, you probably will get started with stocks and shares. But it's not to say that you just have to focus on stocks and shares as well. You can also branch out into other asset classes. The only thing that I would say is, for me, master one first. Make sure you know what you're doing with that, understand it well, you know, whether you're going to go into the active route or passive route. And then once you've got that, if you've got another interest in another asset class, for example, with property, then, you know, again, make sure you're doing your research, and then you can go into that. So there are a few things. You do need to do a little bit of work, I would say. If you want to invest, you do need to do some work.
Have to do something, really, isn't it? I mean, even somebody, he says, get a wealth manager, financial advisor if you're unsure where to invest. But shouldn't you also do a little bit of work to know if that person is capable of doing that?
Yes.
I mean, people want quick ways of doing stuff. I think we need to speak to this generation how not to be lazy. I think this entitlement mentality that I'm entitled to it and don't need to do anything can actually ruin our finances. Even if you're going to get a financial advisor, shouldn't you actually research who you're going to get as your financial advisor?
Well, what I say to that, and I've had this messaging for quite some time, that there's some things in life that you need to do for yourself, and then you use professionals that are, you know, specialists in their areas to add value. So whether it's your health, whether it's your relationship with God, you can't just rely on Pastor Ty with your relationship with God. You can't just rely on your personal trainer with your health. You can't just rely on your financial advisor for your finances. Because I'll be honest with you, I know many financial advisors. I've come across some. I've also worked with people that have had financial advisors, and they can easily sell you financial products. Because when I was younger, I considered a career in financial advisory, but the reason why I didn't go into it, if I'm honest with you guys, is because I've recognized that when you're working for some of these companies, they're very commission-based, and you get the most commission for selling products, like, let's say, life insurance and that kind of stuff. And so what I found, and I still see it now, is a lot of financial advisors push certain financial products and forget others because they get more commission from these products. And so if you're someone who hasn't done any work whatsoever yourself, you can easily find yourself buying all these financial products that you may not need, or it may not be relevant to your personal situation, just because you didn't do the work yourself. I think you need to do a level of work to at least get to a place where when you bring someone in, they really add value rather than them teaching you from scratch.
That's interesting. Because I feel that we need to be able to do some work by ourselves, you understand, and be able to push something forward in our lives. Because when somebody's speaking to us, and I say this with my wife, when somebody wants to sell something to me, I always say, let me go and think about it. Do you understand? Whenever I don't do that now because I don't think it's an asset. I think it's a liability. But when I used to buy cars, you know, you have it for 3 years, you go in and buy another car and all that. I would never buy a car until the manager comes out. Before I get there, I would do a research. I remember when I wanted to buy my Honda, the car that I'm using, I've been using it for years now. I went there, they wanted me to exchange it, but I knew that in the next 3 months, a new model is coming out. But when I got there, they told me that there's a best manager's deal, £5,000 discount on this new car, but it was going to be obsolete. Now, I wasn't sure, so I sat down with the guy, I said, but is a new model coming out? He says, not until next year. So while I was there, I was like, I was doubting whether I read it right. While I was there, I was Googling when the new model is coming out, and it did say it's going to come out in September. So I said to the guy, I'm telling you that the new model is coming out in September. Do you want to go and ask? So he went away. He didn't ask. He knew I was telling the truth. And he came back and he says, yeah, but that discount won't be on the new model. I said, I'll wait. Now, if I hadn't done my research, he would have sold me an obsolete car after 5 years. And I think many of us are not doing research. So they're asking questions, but they don't want to do the research. That at least let me know what this guy is selling to me. Or even when they give it to you, go back and get advice on it. What do you guys think about pensions, especially life insurance at this particular time? I know our time's fast spent, but guys, I think this is not. We're not going to limit this to this week. I think we'll pick this up next week again, and I'll bring a property manager, property guy on board, and the 4 of us will have another discussion on this. So guys, don't worry. If we don't answer your questions, we will pick this up next week. What Vernia, you are money management stuff. What is your thought about pensions? Should a 28-year-old be thinking about that? Should they be thinking about investing in it? These ISAs and all that. Tell us, both of you, about what you think about this.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, yeah, you do hear a lot of young people that say, oh, I've got time to think about my pension. I've got time to think about retirement. And I always kind of ask the question, just asking, do you want to rely on the government when you essentially retire? Because we don't know as young people whether we would have a government pension, because you just don't know. And so it's so important for you to also be able to actually invest in your own future. And again, you have pensions with that, especially if you're working with an employer who maybe gives you an employer match, for example. That's right. Essentially free money, because if you're putting in 5%, they're giving you 5% as well. Right. And so I'm not sure why people would choose not to, because for me, when I put money into my pension, it's come out straight before I even get my money. So you can see it in your paycheck that that's it. Yeah. And so you don't necessarily feel it. And if you're someone that maybe struggles with investing or just saving in general, or at least investing for your future, that is one potential way that you can do it, because essentially you don't really feel it, but you know that you've already started to at least invest in your future. And it's very similar, with stocks and shares, using a stocks and shares ISA, for example. Again, it's for you to start investing for your future. So if you are looking for something such as financial independence, and so that essentially means that your assets are paying for your expenses. Wow. Ideally. So if you don't want to do the traditional retirement at, say, 65, let's say that you choose to retire at 50, you can do it if you are financially independent, but it means you have to start investing for your future relatively quickly. And the younger you start, the better, because you can benefit from compound interest. Your money ends up compounding over time, so that by the time, if you start at 20 years old and you want to retire at 50, it actually means you don't maybe have to invest as much money compared to someone that's maybe 40 years old who then wants to retire at 50 as well. So really, for us young people, time is probably our biggest asset at the moment, because we can really let our money grow over time.
Right. Dax, do you have any contributions to that? And can you also answer this question? Someone said, would you say 200,000 cash, I like how they put it, cash, 200,000 cash, should be the maximum you should save in banks and the rest in investments?
Okay, so I'll come back to that question. You might need to remind me because I want to talk about
I would, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the thing about investing is, like I said earlier, it's about the objectives, your time horizons, your risks. So Verona said if you want to retire before the standard age of or pension age, which is about 65 and above, and your time horizon is shorter, then you need to consider that. Now, pensions are amazing financial products, right? They're the most tax efficient account that you can possibly have, because the money that goes in is tax free, and then you get it matched and that kind of stuff, right? And especially if you want a higher rate taxpayer, obviously it works out even better for you. And as Verona also said, there's three ways to grow any investment portfolio, three contributing factors.
Excellent.
That really allow compound interest to work. One is how much money you're putting in every single month. That's one. Number two is your time, right? The time you have to obviously for this all to work. And then the last one is the performance of your investments. What I find with many people is when they come into this game, they focus so much on performance. Look, I made 20%, I made 50%, I made 100%. But what about how much money you're actually contributing towards this investment? If you've invested £100, you make 100% return, you've only made £100. Someone who's invested £10,000 only needs to make a 10% return to match you, right? So how much you contribute is very important. And obviously when you do the maths, and I would encourage people just to go online, go to, some people call it a compound interest calculator, or some websites just call it an investment calculator, and just put the numbers in and you will see, and try with different numbers, do trial and error, and you will see just how these contributing factors actually changes your returns over time. Time is one of the biggest things. So pensions are extremely important. But we also talk about stocks and shares, ISAs. Why are they great products? Well, they are great products because similar to pensions, they are tax efficient investment accounts. Now, what's different and why it's not as tax efficient as pensions is the money coming in has already been taxed. It's just that the returns that you make are not taxed at all.
Oh,
pensions,
let them listen to that again. Yeah. Wow.
So when money goes into a pension, there's no tax at all. The money that's going in is not taxed at all. It's gross. Whereas with a stocks and shares ISA, you get money from your work or your PAYE or whatever. That money has already been taxed, and then you put it into the ISA, and then any money that you make henceforth is tax-free basically. But the great thing about the stocks and shares ISA is it's very, very flexible. You can take the money out whenever you want, right? Obviously, there's caveats with both. You need to understand the characteristics. You can only put a certain amount into a stocks and shares ISA for £20,000. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail. But yeah, it's about just understanding the characteristics of these accounts, and obviously understanding how it affects your objective and whether it makes sense for what you are trying to achieve. And even aside from that, if you're someone who is, got a lot of cash, you can have other accounts. You can have a standard investment account, but just understand the tax implications of this. But time is very, very important. Verona says something about the opposite side. There's a saying that a compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. It goes on to say that those who understand it earn it, and those who don't are burnt by it. So those who don't are those that are in debt, that don't understand that the debt is compounding, because remember what I said, the returns are still there, but they're negative returns on you. And that's why you get people that have £1,000 debt, they don't pay anything by the time they know they're £5,000 debt, because compound interest has worked against you, right? Whereas as an investor, the earlier you start, the more you contribute, compound interest works for you. And the longer you can do this, the better, which is why pensions are amazing products for this.
200,000.
200,000
in the bank. Should you leave it in the bank, or should you, from what I'm hearing, from what the question is, what do you do with the 2,000? Should you
200,000 or 2,000?
200,000.
Okay, let's talk. So that's not enough information for me to tell you exactly what to do. Of course, there's so many contributing factors, so many considerations you need to consider. And you will need to sit down and actually go through a financial plan. But what I would say, there's a few things you can think about. You can say, hey, 200,000 in one bank might be too much, because if that bank goes bankrupt, you obviously are only protected by the financial services compensation scheme, £85,000. So if the bank just disappeared, you could only get back £85,000.
Not why to put that in one bank.
No. So what I would say is there's so many options available. And if we talk about assets, there's five whole different asset classes. We've got equities. Equities include your own business, anything that you own equity in. So stocks and shares fit under the equity category. You've got fixed income. Under that, we've got bonds. So you might have heard of government bonds, treasury bills, things. That's a different asset class that pay you an interest. Right. Stocks pay you dividends. Right. Bonds pay you an interest. You've got obviously real estate. Many people call it property. And just to give you a correction, it's actually probably should be real estate, because property, this glass is my property. So the actual term that we tend to use is real estate. We also captures land as well. That's the third asset class. And then we've got an asset class for everything else called alternatives. Here we've got things like commodities, and you can even fit cryptocurrencies in there, and you can even fit digital assets in this category as well. And the last category is cash. Now, the important thing to know is all five of these asset classes and the subcategories come with different characteristics. And it's important to understand those characteristics. It's important to understand how these assets even correlate with each other, right? Property is very different. It's an illiquid asset, but it's tangible, right? You tend to get a mortgage, so you tend to get a higher income because it's leveraged, right? Whereas stocks and shares has been actually the best place to put your money for the past 100 years because it has gone up by the most. Easiest way to understand it, and I have these debates with property guys, is, what's going to do better, a very good business or a very good property? And that's why, generally speaking, stocks and shares tend to go up a bit more, but property always comes with its benefits as well. And then you've got things like gold, which doesn't produce anything, but it's a good hedge against inflation. So just to answer the guy's question, I can't just give you an answer straight away. That's true. You need to actually do a whole financial plan.
Well, it's just best not to put £200,000 in just one bank account.
No. I would say probably that without knowing too much, he wants to probably start putting some into some sort of investment accounts. Take advantage of the tax efficient accounts, stocks and shares, ISAs, pensions, standard accounts, and there's so many other things you can look at.
There's a question that came up here. I've always wanted to ask that. I'm not sure if Veronia or Jax, you can answer that. What is the difference between stocks and shares?
I can answer.
Good.
I can answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. The easiest way to answer that is to understand that. Let me explain what shares are. Shares is when you have ownership in a company. That's all it is. And there's a difference between a limited company and a public company. Right. So for a company to become public, it would have had to go through a process called IPO, initial public offering, which means now it becomes public and anyone can invest in this company. Right. So to buy shares in this public company, you have to go and buy it on the stock market. So the public company is a stock, basically. Shares is everything else. So, I have a business, I own shares in a business, but my shares are not stocks because you can't go and buy my shares in my company on the stock market. So I hope that makes sense. There's a difference between stocks and shares. Every stock is a share, but not every share is a stock. I'm gonna say that one more time. Every stock is a share, but not every share is a stock, basically. That's the easiest way to understand it.
Okay, this is a burning question that I want to ask. And then I promise everyone we'll pick this up next week if you have other questions. Veronia, why do people have minimal saving and investments?
I think it probably, for some people, it's because of lack of knowledge. They don't know. For some people, they have the resources, they can see it on the internet, but they would rather live for today than for tomorrow. So I think it's particularly with our sort of community, what I tend to see is that because a lot of us really haven't grown up, again, as was something that we mentioned before, we've never really grown up with that type of wealth, for example. And so because of that, what we think is wealth is actually people acting as if they're rich. And so we tend to think if we buy, certain materials, certain clothes, certain cars, that we're essentially rich, but certain we're not.
Bags.
And bags. Yeah, exactly. But we're not building wealth. And essentially what I find is that you can see people, and this is a problem not just with people in low incomes. You see people that are earning six figures and they're living paycheck to paycheck. I know people that are literally living paycheck to paycheck, because even though you may be getting those promotions, rather than saving, because that's what a lot of people tell me, is that they don't have money to save and invest. But that a lot of the reasons is because they don't know how much money is coming in and how much money is coming out. And so what tends to happen is when they do start to get more money and they start to increase their income, there's something called lifestyle creep, which happens. So when you then start to get more income, you then think, okay, now I need a nicer car, now I need a nicer house. But at the same time, you're still not saving and investing. And so you still end up being paycheck to paycheck, unfortunately, and still having those minimal savings and investments, no matter how much your income changes over time. And so I don't know whether it's just, again, instant gratification that's happening with a lot of people, or people just don't really see the benefit, or maybe they just don't really want to think about their futures. They think that it's all going to be fine in the next 40 to 50 years. But again, it's something that's really important. And if you are, young, and when I really talk about young, I'm kind of talking about 20s, 30s, even 40s, I would say, even 50s, to be honest. It's actually never too late to start saving and investing. But no matter what you're at, it just means that the younger you are, the more time that you have to be able to, sort out your finances and get your investments or your money to really work for you. So it's really going to depend on what you want to prioritize as well. Do you want to save a little bit for today for a beautiful tomorrow? It's up to you.
Can I add something on that?
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Jax.
What I mean, when I come across people that say, "Hey, Jax, I just don't have enough money to invest," I say to them, look, let's just be honest and let's just be true. You either have one of these problems or a combination of both. You either have an income problem or an expenditure problem. Right. And most people have a combination of both. So either you're just not making enough money, which can happen. And then in that case, we need to explore different ways to generate additional sources of income, or whatever you do for a day job. How can we make the most of that so that you are paid a decent amount for the value that you bring? And if you're not bringing enough value, we need to find a way to increase your value so that you can get paid enough, because that's what money is. Money equals value. That's all it is, right? So that's the income problem. And then, as Verona said, and she's covered it very well, a lot of people have an expenditure problem. And with that, you just have to be very, very honest with yourself. Go and do a budget, print out your last 3-month statement, see what's going out. And if it's a lot of things that you want that's going out rather than needs, then you just have to ask yourself, hey, where do my priorities really, really lie?
That's my heart's desire, because there's a lot of people that go for wants instead of needs. Instead, even a wedding, you understand? Inside a wedding, we did this premarital for 4 weeks, and we had a couple that came in to share their spreadsheet of what they did for their wedding and how much they brought down stuff. And I remember what one of them, the lady, the wife said. She said that even the flowers that you place on the table, when she was about to get married, that her best friend says, don't go and buy flowers. So she went to the flowers that she gave her bridesmaids to hold was what they put on the table at the reception, because her friend asked her a question, at my wedding, can you remember what flowers I put on? And she said, no. See, it was, and she said she spent nearly 3,000, I think, I can't remember, on just flowers. This thing about needs and wants is what is killing us, because even if you get an additional job, if you don't really deal with the fundamental things that can set you up into what we're talking about today, we're still going to be the same. What do you think, Veronia?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for me, what was interesting, when I essentially actually paid off my debt and I was budgeting and I was saving and then I was starting to invest, for me, it felt like God was saying, okay, now that you know how to handle your money, this is the time where you can now start to increase your income. And funnily enough, I ended up getting a promotion, an increase in my income during a pandemic as well. So it's so important, because again, if you don't know how to manage your money well with earning £20,000, how are you going to manage it with £200,000? So you really want to set those habits, set those foundations as well. And not even just with your finances. I find that, when you're thinking about how you are spiritual with your relationship with God, how you are health wise as well, because you can't be hoarding all this money and you're not healthy and you can't enjoy it because you haven't really focused on your your health either. So you see how it all kind of interlinks together. So that's why.
Wow, that's really true. We're going to close now, but before we close, I want to answer a quick question. Someone put here, it says, where can the older generation start if they have a limited working life left or minimal income? Is there a good way to invest in later in life? Now I'm going to answer partially and then I'll ask the panel. We are going to deal with this next week too. You understand? We are going to I want to also bring up a property guy. I want to ask these questions also. You understand? Just increase the panel, and then we're going to take this further on. You understand? And any questions during the week, we'll be able to answer. Probably next week, maybe if we can shock the system a bit and have real data of showing if you start investing in pensions right now, in the next 10 years, 20 years, this is what you're going to get. If you do this, this is what you're going to get, which probably will help the younger generation understand why the older generations are asking these questions. Because I'm going to say this in the defense of the older generation. I'm starting from even my parents, you understand, my dad. My dad wasn't taught to buy property. My dad lived in Clapham. They offered him a flat in Clapham. He said no. He lived in a house in Clapham. I asked him, how much was it? He was saying it's probably like 10,000 or 20,000. I'm like, Dad. So I picked him up when he came, took him down to Clapham. He told me where he was living, and then we Googled it. That house was 3.5 million.
Yeah.
No one taught them. In fact, they were struggling to get through. They had to go through racism. They had to go through all that kind of stuff. They were just trying to make a life. Nobody actually taught them. Even me, no one taught me this. And my cry for this next generation, and the reason why we're bringing this on, is that you have the opportunity now. You young guys, there are many other guys around, not only in church, but around. We will be bringing them on as we go along, who are giving us this opportunity. If we can just roll our sleeves now, buckle down and delay gratification and enjoy later, that would be great. But as this wonderful woman is asking, where can the older generation start? Let's think about somebody who is now into their 45s, their 50s. What can they do in simplistic terms now? Is there any advice you can give? Because I know it's not an age thing, it's a knowledge thing that you guys can just give to us.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you know, it's sometimes it's unfortunate, and just to before I even answer that, I had a conversation with my dad on New Year's Day last year, and he was just telling me how a lot of these age mates can't even retire, and they will have to work consistently on. And it just made me really, really, really sad. And I think the young generation should really listen to this and use it as a way to. I'm not saying use someone's misery as you know motivation, but just understand that, you know, these things are important. I would say the key thing here is you probably need to sit down and speak to a financial advisor who can look at your situation holistically and then provide you in the right direction, because there are options available, but it really, really does depend on your individual circumstances. For example, if you are someone who has been working for a minimum of 10 years and a standard of 35 years, for example, you are, and you've been paying the national insurance, you are entitled to the state pension, for example. I will also say, I forgot the website. I think the website is called Pension Wise. Go on Google, go to Pension Wise. If you are the age of 50, you can call them up and literally have a conversation with them for 40 minutes to an hour for free, and they can give you some advice.
Pension Wise.
I believe it's Pension Wise, yeah.
And they can have a free conversation to see what they can do and where they can go from
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let me double
Okay.
check that, but I mean, I remember having that information at hand, and I'm quite sure that's true. But maybe next week I'll double check and I'll give that.
Right. Veronia, what advice do you have? What can you say?
Yeah, I was going to say is again, it's going to depend on your personal circumstances. Some people, for example, if they've been able to buy a house at that point, and if the house has appreciated in value, what some people would do is actually end up downsizing. So it means that they have less to pay on their house, and actually they can use some of that money as part of their pension, for example. So yeah, again, it's going to depend on your personal circumstances. It's going to depend on, again, if you had a mortgage, or if you bought a property, and whether you also have some form of pensions as well. Obviously there is the state pension as well, but I would probably say contact a financial advisor as well with that.
Yeah, because that downsize is a fantastic is an idea, because many people, you understand, their children are no more in the house, you understand, or or they have a 3 or 4 bedroom and their children are there. Well,
Yeah.
Tell them to start paying rent, or probably kick them out and get tenants in and receive that money and start putting it in towards an investment somehow, or you can downsize. I saw a lady at her 50s, you understand, who started to take in children. She became a care worker for children, taking care of them. There's a particular word you use for it's escaped me right now. And so they were paying her, you understand? So the children would stay there for a while and then they would go, and then they started paying her. And all she started to do was that, bam, she started to put that money in fact, as Jack rightly said, spoke to a good, trusted financial advisor, started putting that money aside and reinvesting that money. And there's quite a number of things that can be done. And I think that we'll go deeper into that next week and also speak to our generation. And I think that will be great. Well, we got to stop now because it's 1 hour, 30 minutes that we've been on here. Guys, for those who are watching us online, those still who are on YouTube, I hope that you've gained something from this. I hope we can press on YouTube and just say, yeah, thumbs up for this, so that it can go out to people. We can also send this out to our friends and to our families, people who can gain from this discussion. By next week, we'll have further ideas. I feel we should talk further on. We will talk basically about how to reduce your debt, you understand, in details, some certain things that you need to get rid of. Maybe we can talk about budgeting, then we'll talk about being somebody who is in the property industry that can talk about properties and investments and all that kind of stuff. And then stocks and stuff that we can also talk about further on. All we're trying to do is we're trying to give people a great financial base for the future. And then your questions, we need questions. You can foster carer. Sorry, somebody just said it to me, foster carer. Yeah, you can be a foster carer and help, and you can generate funds from that. You can generate, I'm talking to the older generation, you can generate funds from that. And but what I do like in what Verona said, yes, you can also downsize. So guys, the following announcements, we are back next week evening. We are going to round this up. We're going to talk further on. We have somebody else on the panel, and we are just going to go for it. And any questions you have that you couldn't ask on YouTube, please, you can send it to info@worshiptabernacle.org.uk. Send your questions throughout this week so that we can answer them in details, and then we can be also a blessing to you. Thank you for those on YouTube. I know that there were some other funny comments. I don't know why people come in onto YouTube. If you don't have any business being in there, then please stay out. But they just come in and then they just start putting some stuff up there. Please ignore them or block them, you understand? And that will be fine, so that we can just continue with this conversation. But I want to thank Jack. I wanted to thank Verona. Thank you guys for coming on. We are going to close right now. But before we close, I would want to say to people, this is a time to also learn. I said 3 things about to pursue financial peace. And I spoke about economic consecration. And economic consecration is you learning to save, you also learn to obey. So you need to obey what you're hearing right now. And lastly, learn to give. So tonight you can give. You check on our website, or you can download our Worship Tabernacle app. Please download our app, and on our app it will tell you how to give and how to be a blessing. But also our app is there to be able to give you details that we have. And next week we will not use Instagram. We just want to go right for it right now, and we'll send you details on how you can log in. So if you haven't got our Worship Tabernacle app, please download our Worship Tabernacle app, and I believe that it will be a blessing. Finally, guys, give us some time. We're developing a team right now, a financial team in church, you understand, where these questions can be asked, where we can direct you to the right places, you understand, non-profit. We just want to be able to be an asset. Church is not only about preaching, it's an empowerment center. If you're looking for a job, if you want to increase your earning, we've got what is called an Excel team, which deals with job. They had a wonderful time last week. This time around, we're going to set up this group. We're going to have Veronia, we're going to have Jack, we're going to have other people on that can help you if you are serious. If you are not serious, we will charge you a fee for you not being serious. We just need people who really want to change their lives, ask the right questions, get the right place to go, and I believe it will be a blessing. And God bless you all. We're going to meet again on Sunday at 11 o'clock. And I want to, guys, on Sunday, I'm going to be nice. I really want to be nice. I want to deal with our mindset. I want to deal with depression. I want to deal with these things that are not making us move on in life. It's our next series, and I believe in the name of Jesus that we will be able to have healthy minds. As Verona rightly says, it's a holistic stuff, healthy minds, healthy spirit, and a healthy finances. And God bless you. Let's pray over our offering. Say this after me. Say, my God is able to make all grace, every favor, and earthly blessing come to me in abundance, that I may under all circumstance, whatever the need be, self-sufficient, possessing enough to require no aid or support. Say, I will be furnished in abundance unto every good work and charitable donation in Jesus' name. Guys, if you are on YouTube, why don't you give a big clap and a big appreciation to our guys, Veronia Spain and Jack Opoku. Thank you, guys. I hope we'll be able to meet again next week, and we'll be on this panel and just do 2 weeks, and then we'll be able to round this up. God bless you guys, and thank you so much. All right, guys, we're going to close the service. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the sweet fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now forevermore. Surely, goodness and mercy will follow us all the days of our life as we dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. And I want you to shout this wherever you are. Say, I am in Goshen. We are in Goshen, guys. God bless you.